Greetings, A Players, and welcome to the debut episode of the A Players podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Caldwell. And in this episode, we're just going to give you an overview of what this podcast is about, why we created this podcast, who it's for, and what to expect going forward. So first, who is this podcast for? Well, it's for business owners, executives, managers, and those that are in a position of leadership that are looking for ways to increase their team's performance and the overall performance of the organization itself. Because we believe that a company or an organization is only as good as its people, and having the right people doing the right things, that's key to a thriving organization. So how do you attract and retain these A players? How do you take B and C players and transform them into A players, or know when to part ways? One thing we know is that the most successful organizations in terms of great overall performance and work culture, they understand the correlation between performance and revenue. So what is it that they're doing that others are not? And what is it that they know that others don't? Well, these are the answers that we'll be exploring as we interview effective leaders and learn the secrets to their success. Aside from that, we'll also be sharing tools and strategies that you can employ with your team to further support you in taking your business to the next level. So who am I and why did I create this show? Well, I'm a certified digital marketing consultant and strategist, and the founder of Team Impress Marketing, which is a marketing consulting and training organization. And I should say it's a digital marketing consulting and training organization. We train and certify in-house teams in modern digital marketing strategies. And I created this show because in the process of training and working with clients and their teams, I noticed that in many cases, the organizations had rules and policies in place that actually made it very hard for their team members to thrive. And that wasn't where it stopped. Not only did the rules and the processes make it hard for the team members to thrive, they were actually penalized for not doing what they were asked to do, when sometimes what they were asked to do was actually detrimental to the company itself. So a lot of times it left the employees in between a rock and a hard place. Do I do what's best for the company, or do I do what the leadership tells me to do? Either way, it was a lose-lose situation. And after repeatedly running into situations like this, I realized that there is a disconnect and there's a gap oftentimes between leadership and the staff that needed to be addressed before the team could actually perform at their best. And for the most part, the team members wanted to do the best for the organization, especially if they respected the leadership. They wanted to go above and beyond, but there were just roadblocks that they found it hard to communicate. And even as an outside trainer, I ran into some of those roadblocks as well. So that led me on this path of working on how do we close the gap? How do we get top performance? Because I'd always had success with my own teams, but then I always had that open communication with my teams to where they can come and we would deal with problems together and we would figure out how we were going to fix it. And I noticed that they were actually more productive and more proactive in this process. So when I was working with other organizations, I realized a lot of times this is what needed to happen before we could even talk about getting great performance. We had to have that gap closed, the communication open, and the safety and security in knowing that, hey, if I bring something to your attention, that my job is not going to be on the line. So all of these factors actually go into performance. But how do we get there? So that's what this podcast is all about. What are the tools? What are the strategies that you need to get top performance? I can't tell you how many times I've heard business owners and managers saying, hey, I can't find the right people. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you're hiring the wrong people. And that's another whole topic in and of itself, one that we will definitely be discussing in the course of these episodes. and this podcast itself. But the other side of it is a lot of times there's a lot of unused and untapped talent sitting right there in front of you, and you don't know how to draw it out. And that's what we're working on. How do you get to that talent? How do you really, really capitalize on it? And when you do, oh my gosh, it catapults your business in a way, because if your team feels like you got their back, they're going to go above and beyond to take care of your business for you. They're going to be your eyes, ears, and your pulse in ways that you can't do by yourself. And matter of fact, that's what you hire them for anyway. But a lot of the employees and team members are not actually living up to that standard. And that's simply because they don't feel that. They come to work if they do just enough to get by. And when someone is doing just enough to get by, they become a liability. And nobody wants to hire a liability. So if this seems like it's something that's interesting to you and you're looking for ways to get the top performance out of your team members, and you're looking for advice and guidance on those who are doing it every day, then this is the podcast for you. And you are in the right place. So my advice to you is to go ahead and subscribe now to this podcast so that you don't miss any episodes. And again, I did say that we were going to talk about the people first. So people first, strategy and everything else next. That's a quote that I love from Jack Welch. People first, strategy and everything else next. I don't care how great the strategy is. If you don't have the right people to implement, it's not going to go over well. But on the contrary, if you got the right people and the right work culture and the right environment, a poor strategy will do better than a great strategy with the wrong people. So we're going to be talking about digital marketing. We're going to be talking about sales. We're going to be talking about manufacturing. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things because, of course, you're probably in different industries. But the key, if you get the people right, you get the environment right, everything else is going to fall into a place a whole lot better. But we're going to also give you tools and strategies to catapult that success even more. So again, if this sounds like this is a podcast for you, go ahead and click the subscribe button now. And I can't wait to jump into this episode with you. And here is just a sneak preview of what's to come in the next episode with Andy Patrick, as we talk and go deep on what it means to motivate your employees and how do you get top performance out of them in a way that they're happy and more than willing to go above and beyond for you and your organization.
I was getting ready, to get that plane ticket. But once I started working with him, I forgot about it. It was so good. I was enjoying myself. We were getting there, I'm not exaggerating, we were getting there at 6 a.m. in the morning, and we wouldn't leave till 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, depending what we were doing. And we were just loving it. And by the way, that company went from 25 to 200 people in 4 years.
Wow.
It exploded. And the reason it exploded was its performance. And the reason for its performance was its people. And the reason the people were doing such a good job was because the leader, Lewis, just had that way about leading people in such a way that you lifted them up, inspired them, and they wanted to perform for the company. And what a difference.
Thank you for listening to episode 1 of the A Players podcast. And if this topic is something that you want to learn more about, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now and get ready for episode 2 with Andy Patrick. You don't want to miss it.